Hi, I'm Daniel, and we have an interesting topic today. We'll be talking about 5 essential revenue metrics that MSPs should be tracking. The data that your business produces is like crude oil. At its current form, it is not of much use. However, once it is purified and condensed into usable components, data like crude oil becomes transformational. This is exactly what analytics does. We are going to look at a few revenue metrics in the context of a service provider. These reports were created using ManageEngine Analytics Plus, mostly using the data from Service Desk Plus MSP. ManageEngine Analytics Plus is a fairly new addition to the ManageEngine suite of products with a focus on IT analytics. It tightly integrates with Service Desk Plus MSP to provide analytics for service providers. This integration with Service Desk Plus MSP comes with a host of pre-built reports and dashboards. Let's take a look at the revenue dashboard. Here we have a few basic revenue metrics like total revenue versus average revenue, number of outstanding bills per account, etc. You can create your own reports and dashboards in addition to the ones that you see here. The metrics that we are going to talk about today go beyond the pre-built ones available in this integration. We will be taking a dive into how your revenue data can be leveraged to aid informed decision making. In addition to the integration, data from your in-house applications can be fetched into Analytics Plus for analysis. Please feel free to post your questions in the GoToWebinar panel that is on your screen, and we will answer them via email. MRR, or monthly recurring revenue, is the amount of predictable revenue that your service is making every month. It is a key component of the service provider business model and is often cited as the top metric that providers should closely monitor. With each new agreement signed, the amount of predictable ongoing revenue increases. However, merely measuring the total MRR by itself can be misleading. As the business grows, it is important to track not only top-level MRR but also other data points that can provide key insights to monthly recurring revenue. Before we talk about these data points, let's first create an MRR report. Here, I have some revenue data for the last 6 months that I pulled from my finance application. It has revenue metrics like total revenue and a few others that we will be talking about in a bit. To create a report in Analytics Plus, click the new icon and select New Chart View. This is the Analytics Plus report builder. The fields that can be used to build reports are on the left pane. I can drag these fields to the X and Y axes to build reports. Dragging a field to the color box segregates my reports based on the chosen field. Adding a field to the text box adds text labels to the respective section in the graph. The color and text options add more dimensions to the reports. Before we begin creating the report, let's give it a name. I'm going to call it MRR View. Let's drag the total revenue column to the y-axis and the date column to the x-axis. This is a simple MRR report. A key MRR metric is the MRR growth rate. The MRR growth rate can be calculated by comparing the net MRR of 2 subsequent months. We can add the MRR growth rate metric to this report. Drag the total revenue column to the y-axis and select the % difference from option under the sum menu like so, and select the date column. This gives us the MRR and the corresponding growth rate. We can see that the MRR for the month of February is much higher than the previous month. However, in March, it suffers a steep fall. To figure out why, we need to consider the following aspects: new revenue, lost revenue, expansion or upgrades, and reduction or downgrades. While customers may expand or contract business with their service provider for reasons outside the provider's control, These metrics can provide insights into trends that are otherwise often overlooked. For example, the expansion or upgrade metric can provide visibility into effectiveness of growing business within the existing customer base through cross or upselling, while the reduction or downgrades metric may signal that customers are no longer finding much value in the services offered by the provider. The money brought in by new customers will show up in the new revenue metric, and the money lost due to loss of customers will be seen in the lost revenue metric. I have these data points in the revenue table. With these, we can build a Mro Split Report. A Mro Split Report has the new revenue, lost revenue, upgrades and downgrades columns, along with the corresponding MRR growth rate. I am going to create the Mro Split Report as a standalone report. Let's click the new icon and select New Chart View. Before we begin, let's give it a name. We are calling the report a Mro Split Report. Let's drag all the revenue metrics to the y-axis. And the date column to the x-axis. The MRR growth rate works just like how it did for the MRR report. So let's create that. Now we can see how the increase in new revenue caused a spike in the MRR growth rate in February. March seems to have seen a loss of a few customers, and this is why the MRR growth rate shows a decline. The business model of a managed service provider involves offering their service to multiple customers. Acquiring new customers at regular intervals is important to grow and sustain business. It holds good for any business as a matter of fact. One aspect that most businesses overlook is figuring out how diversified their revenue really is. When 80 to 90% of an MSP's revenue comes from one or two of its customers, it indicates a high dependency on a few customers. This makes the business highly vulnerable. So it is important for MSPs to diversify their revenue, that is, make sure that the majority of the revenue is not coming from a small group of customers. The first step in doing so is understanding their revenue distribution. I have two reports that show the revenue distribution of two different MSPs. The first report shows an example of an MSP where the major chunk of the revenue is from two customers, Quad Media and Zilker Inc. This is exactly what an MSP should try to avoid, because this signifies that the MSP's revenue is largely dependent on these customers. A revenue distribution report should look more like this one, where the revenue share is not more than 30% for any single customer. A revenue distribution like this signifies a healthy business. The MSP would not be impacted by a great degree even if one of these customers was to discontinue their contract. We talked about distributing revenue across multiple customers. A similar logic can be employed for internal assessment of individual support groups or teams also. It is important to periodically review how much money each of your support group is making. This is called gross group revenue. It helps you answer some critical questions. How profitable are my support groups? What are the areas that I should be concentrating? Should I add more resources to the support groups that are generating more revenue? Here's a sample of the gross group revenue report. You can clearly see that the revenue contribution of the hardware and client relations teams is higher than any of the other support groups. This indicates that these are the true areas that are more profitable and the ones that I should be concentrating on. It also shows that I can reassign some of the engineers in the less profitable groups to these support groups, or hire more engineers who can handle these issues. One thing that MSP should keep in mind is that the gross group revenue doesn't indicate the efficiency of your support groups. It simply is an indicator of the type of requests customers put forward and the type of requests that make the most money. Gross group revenue should not be used as a scale to judge the performance of your support groups. It may vary by a large degree amongst different customers based on how they make use of the services provided. We talked about how revenue diversification benefits an MSP and how gross group revenue helps figure out the profitability of various support teams. Let's shift our focus to the end customers. How does a customer know if he is effectively utilizing the resources that are available to him and if he is getting the bang for his buck? The one comment that customers repeatedly make when MSP contracts are renewed or renegotiated is, "We are wondering if you're paying for more than what we really need," or "Do we really need X amount of services?" A good metric to have in these situations is the customer effective rate. It involves a simple calculation: the total amount invoiced divided by the total number of hours logged towards resolving requests raised by the respective customer. This is a good indicator of the amount of dedicated time each customer is getting from the MSP and can serve as a good tool for contract negotiation. Here I have a customer effective rate report. Every bar in this report represents the revenue per hour that the customer pays. Customers whose CER is low are in fact getting the most for their money. Conversely, customers with higher CER like Acme Corp are the ones that are more profitable for the MSP. Balancing customers with low and high CERs will ensure your business's success. If one is looking for a less complex way of tracking revenue, a report comparing the month-on-month revenue of the MSP would be useful. To make things a little more interesting, I've included the expected revenue metric to the report. The expected revenue is calculated based on the total amount that is due that month based on the generated invoice. In addition to the trend of actual money made, it also compares the actual money that should have been made each month. This metric is a useful tool to have when the books don't quite add up. Here is a revenue report with the expected revenue metric added. In the months November, January and February, the actual revenue tallies with the expected revenue. However, in the later months, we see that the actual revenue lags behind the expected value. This means that some of my customers are behind on bills. Let's drill down to see who. Looks like Globex and Quad Media haven't paid their bills yet. I will make sure to send them reminder emails. With that, we have come to the end of this presentation. We have barely scratched the surface of what analytics is capable of in the realm of revenue analysis. Leverage analytics to make data-driven decisions and create a smarter business. I would recommend that you continue to sift through your data to identify metrics in addition to the ones that we have discussed today. You can compile them into a single Revenue Insights dashboard, making it easier to view them all in one single place. For this, you can make use of an ebook that we have put together on creating powerful dashboards. In this ebook, we'll be talking about how you can create dashboards that give insights at a glance. You can download it by scanning the QR code that is flashing on your screen. Thank you for attending this webinar. Feel free to email me at daniel.c@manageengine.com with any questions or feedback you may have. Thank you.